Good.
All right, we're ready to go.
Well, today we've talked already about the Olympics. The Olympics have happened. I'm an Olympic, I don't know what the right word is, maven. Not, I would get up, I'm one of the people, it was in Tokyo, I would get up when the events, the track and field events began and stream them at 5:30 or 6 in the morning. I've been following the Olympics a long time. I'm pretty knowledgeable about Olympic history, and track and field is very moving to me. So the title of this little interaction is Athletes as Heroes Overcoming Adversity. And what prompts me to talk about that is Time had a feature article, it's one of 100, how the Olympics changed the conversation about mental health. What can you summarize what the bottom line is of an article with that kind of a heading, Zach, where they're going? What's the thought?
I don't know if I'm looking at the right article, but if it's from the Times and they're saying how the Olympics have changed our idea of mental health, then it's going to be something like, it's going to be something like people are now feeling less stigma around declaring that they have a mental health crisis and then leaving the thing that they're doing to go take care of it.
Right. And the example they use is Simone Biles. And the ironic thing to me is Simone Biles is not an example of the thing that they're describing.
Right. That's a good way to thread that needle.
And she's not an example because she doesn't think of her life in terms of trauma, either her birth life. She wasn't brought up by her birth mother and she was in foster care. And there are subsequent horrible things that happened to her, including Larry Nassar, which are abominable and can't happen. But she doesn't think in those terms. When she said she couldn't continue in the Olympics, it was because she felt she was not in a peak form, and she could have failed and hurt herself.
Right.
And taking agency for your own life is something that we are 100,000% behind. It's the basis of the Life Process program. You know, if she got injured, people would be sympathetic, but it's her life. You have to take that control. And the main reason why she's not an example of, oh, you have to recognize your mental health and your traumas and then quit, is she came back and won another medal.
Yeah.
And so you know, I feel I'm in danger of being some old guy like who likes the heroes on Olympic Wheaties packages. And I admire people who face adversity and overcome it. And people say, oh my God, that is so out of it. But I'm not the only one, because after she won, it was only a bronze. And she's used to winning golds. The people in the audience and her teammates and around the world went wild.
Yeah.
And they went wild, I think, for the same reason I went wild, which is, okay, she's already the greatest athlete in the world in her field, in women's gymnastics. She's like superhuman, but she's not superhuman. And, you know, she came to grips with that and nonetheless still performed, you know, third in the world's good.
So, you know, we got a little pushback from in some places about recording that episode about Simone Biles, because people thought we were like the Tucker Carlsons of the world who were saying, oh, she's a quitter. And of course, I think he laid it out pretty well there. Our response to Simone Biles deciding to take care of her life responsibilities and saying that the Olympics couldn't be a priority now, for all we know, that's just the right decision, a healthy, correct decision to make for doing well in life.
And that's her decision to take.
Right. And we could call that, I mean, it might be heroic given circumstances. We might not call it heroic, but just the right thing to do. But we don't really know. What we're pushing against is the media take that story and they say, aha, another person who's acknowledging her mental health and, you know, no, she's got a mental health crisis. She needs to go see it, whatever, go see a shrink. And that's the heroic part. And we were trying to say, none of us, we don't know her story and neither do the media, but the onus is on the media, if they're going to report a story on her, to know what the hell they're talking about. So,
well, I'd say we're going to lose on this debate. The fact that we got pushback. When a meme comes out and every single commentator says the same thing, we don't know that she sought mental health assistance.
right. That's exactly it.
No, she might have gone home and meditated. She might have gone home and had a drink because she was too tense. But the main we're going to lose on this argument because people just believe it's good to take care, quit and go to mental health treatment. And our main argument against that is we're not doing well in the United States. And, I'm just going to summarize briefly. We quoted David Brooks, in which he focused on adult children's self-identified traumas. And the title of the piece was "What's Ripping American Families Apart?" And the subtitle is "The United States Seems to Be in the Middle of a Pervasive Psychological Decline." We have the minority position, and I hate to drag you into the pit with me. Everybody says, well, America's great. People are always going into mental health treatment. But the United States, we refer to the 196 country World Health Organization global burden of disease. The United States has the most mental health and health treatment, and it's number 2 in life years lost due to anxiety and depression combined, and number 1 in drugs combined. So you're bragging.
Right, exactly.
So great. Everybody should be like us and sink to the bottom of the world ranking. But when everybody believes something, when every New York Times, Time, when every publication says the same thing, we're going to lose. That's just a thing that everybody believes.
The added element to that, which we addressed, was not only that the story was spun that, oh, good, paying attention to mental illness. It was also antagonistic of a Stoic outlook, or a achievement centered Stoic sort of overcoming your trauma outlook, which is exactly the problem that David Brooks addresses in that article.
And because it's a losing argument to fight that. So today I'm going to do my Olympic heroes argument. It's not an argument, it's worship. And I'm just going to be starry-eyed about some all women athletes, and how they confronted challenges in their life, some involving mental health, and triumphed. I'm just a goofy, old-fashioned guy, I know. I'm going to start out with number 1, Molly Seidel, is an American who won the bronze medal in the marathon. Just for starters, here's just some unbelievable things. She won the bronze medal. That was only the 3rd marathon she ever ran. So already you're going, huh? How's that possible? If you're a marathon runner, she ran in the last Olympics in 2016 in Rio, and she ran in Atlanta to qualify for this, and then she ran in this. A few hours before the race began, it was moved to an earlier start time at 6 a.m. Why did they do that in Tokyo? Because there was a record heat wave. Maybe you've heard about this. Runners face temperatures of 78 degrees Fahrenheit and 82% humidity at the start line. It's going to be at
6 a.m.
26.2 miles. By the way, let me just back up one step. The Olympics is organized around the marathon, and I'm just going to read from Wikipedia. The event was instituted in commemoration of the fabled run of the Greek soldier Phidippides, a messenger from the Battle of Marathon to Athens, who reported the victory. I believe after he ran the 26 miles, he died, which is bad harm reduction. I'm not aware of any world-class marathoners who died after running the marathon. Now, Wikipedia goes on to say, the marathon can be completed by running, with a walk, or with a run-walk strategy. There are also wheelchair divisions. More than 800 marathons are held throughout the world each year, with the vast majority of competitors being recreational athletes, as larger marathons can have tens of thousands of participants. Marathons are the only athletic event in the world, I believe, where world-class, they have those people running up front, those 2-hour people, and then they have a bunch of other people. And I lived in Park Slope. At the end of they ran by the end of my block, and people would go out there, and you'd go out there. Of course, you can see some world-class guys run by. And then you'd see, a bunch of schleppers, regular people. We were at about, I don't know, mile 15. Anyway, everybody claps because, come on. So I'm back now to Molly Seidel. They changed the race time to 6 a.m. And this is I'm quoting, Seidel didn't seem to mind. Truthfully, I wanted it to be as hard as possible, she said after clinching bronze. I think I thrive off a little bit of adversity. The Olympic trials course in Atlanta was tough, the qualifying one. When the going gets tough, that's my strong suit. So you might think, well, here's one of those Stoics who never talks about mental health. But let's go on. She ran a tactical and gutsy race, staying with the lead pack, if not leading herself for the entire course. You may be aware that often the winners of long distance races in recent years have been Africans, Kenyans, and Ethiopians. And her goal, she said, was to stick your nose where it doesn't belong and try to make some people angry.
I loved that quote. I mean, that's sort of my MO too.
At least 15 of the 88 entrants would drop out. You're 25 miles, it's 89 degrees. Even those who previously thrived in hot conditions found the going tough. Now remember, and Africans are used to running in heat. And her kind of strategy was, well, I'll just run with them. So I want to go into the background, and it's a mental health issue. About 2 months before the Olympic trials, I wanted everyone to know the real Molly. I went on my close friend Julia Hanlon's podcast called Running on Ohm, and I decided to get real, like really, really real. It was scary, but I felt ready. This is the first time I went public with my story about receiving treatment for disordered eating in 2016 and my struggles with obsessive compulsive disorder, depression, and anxiety. Revealing all this is a double-edged sword. The podcast was followed up by an article, the magazine, in the week of the trials, and suddenly I was, the capitals, eating disorder runner of the once great runner, or the once great runner who overcame an eating disorder. And I bolded this, but much more than that. But she's somebody, one of the things that we discuss is being open about your problems. We're for that. And seeking support for your problems, we're for that. Normally, I live with my sister, Isabel, in Boston. She's a huge part of my support system. But she went back to her hometown in Wisconsin in the early summer. This is in response to the pandemic. They postponed the Olympics. I was alone in the apartment, and that's when I started to struggle. In the past, I would have been like, no, I'm fine, I can handle this on my own. I bolded this. I would have cut myself off from people, and my life would have been full of self-destructive behavior. Back then, I didn't have a toolbox to combat everything that I had struggled with since a young age. I didn't have the mental techniques to get myself out of those dark moments. Now, she's been in treatment, but this is the only technique that she mentions. This time was different. I had self-awareness and tools. I realized that I needed my support system. I couldn't be alone. I needed my family, so I went back to Wisconsin for a month. That's not a really fancy mental health. We're 100% for it. And we talked about, remember, gymnast Suni Lee and her whole Hamon clan, where she's running for, 150 people in our living room.
You mean to say it's a down to earth story? It's not a fanciful tale that people usually tell about their mental illness.
And she's both gutsy. She didn't quit. And she was open about her mental health issues. Why shouldn't she be? And she dealt with them in a way, they haven't just invented the idea of seeking family support as a way of dealing with difficulty. That's not. And she doesn't mention taking drugs. All right. There's going to be a quiz, Zach. This is going to be tough. So the first person I've discussed is Molly Seidel, American bronze medal marathon. We're up to Laura Muir, British, 1,500 meters, silver. That's second place. Laura Muir has never won a big time world championship or Olympic race. So she's kind of running, hearing footsteps behind her. She's never won a medal. As one athlete called Faith blasted towards immortality, the winning runner is a Kenyan named Faith Kipyegon. Another, Britain's Laura Muir, never lost her faith. And in the women's 1,500 meter final of breathtaking intensity, she was rewarded with a gutsy and overdue Olympic medal. Again, we're talking about speaking about emotions. I don't think I've ever been so scared. I mean, it's hard for us to even grasp it. You're 1,500's like the mile, and she's running against the best runners in the world. She's a world-class runner, but she's never really totally succeeded at that level. And so she gunned past Sifan Hassan on the final bend to move into the silver medal position, quote, because the past few times I have lost it in the last 200 meters, I was so scared that I was going to get pipped to fourth. That two people are going to run by her. And I gave it absolutely everything. I was tightening up so bad, I thought, keep pushing, keep pushing. I gave it everything. There have been a lot of sad tears, but now I have silver and a British record as well. As she spoke, her voice began to break. So she's my hero. She's still emotional. She dealt with, some history of loss. And she decided she wasn't going to lose. All right, she passed Sifan Hassan, who was a Dutch Ethiopian who won 3 medals, which is impossible because the 3 medals she won were the bronze in the 1,500. She got passed by Muir, but came in third. She won the gold in the 5,000, the gold in the 10,000. The 5,000 and 10,000, the 5,000 is run on the first Saturday of the Olympics. The 10,000 is run on the last Saturday. The 1,500 requires a qualifying round, an opening round, a semifinal, and a final, where you're running 1,500 meters against the world's best runners. And she ran that race on a Friday to come in third. And then the next day, she was going to run 10,000 meters. At the end of the, somebody added all those numbers up. At the end of 24,500 meters of hard running and 6 races over 9 days, Sifan Hassan of the Netherlands stood alone before tumbling to the track, disbelief etched across her face. I have trained every single moment thinking about this for 4 years, she said. We've talked about immigrants. Hassan, 28, was born in Ethiopia, but came to the Netherlands as a refugee in 2008. I'm guessing that was some duress. She is now in the conversation as one of the greatest distant runners in Olympic history. On Saturday, Hassan won the women's 10,000 meters at the Tokyo Games to pull off an extraordinary feat, winning medals in 3 grueling events, the 1,500, the 5,000, and the 10,000s. Back on the medal podium for the third and final time, she cried, quote, and it wasn't the medal, she said, it was that I'd done. It's a relief. I think I'm kind of crazy. Why would somebody even, and a lot of runners, they say, well, how can she do that? You can't run the 5,000, then run 3 heats of the 1,500, then run the 10,000 the next day. It's impossible. On the night of the track and field at the Olympics, Hassan unleashed a ferocious kick on the bell lap of the 10,000 meters to separate herself from Kalkadan Gizaheng of Bahrain, who finished second, and Letzenbet Giddy of Ethiopia, who drifted to third. Giddy holds the world record in the event, but even she was no match for Hassan. So she just ran 1,500 meters the day before. She got passed by Muir. She came in third. And then she's going against the world record holder in 10,000. And then she made, and people are saying, well, aren't your legs won't let you do that. Then she made her sprint to win in the final lap after the 1,500 final the day before. She wouldn't let herself lose, is my comment. I don't know. I'm going to admire that forever. And then I have a note here. I want to do a little drunk history now. I know we're mixing up means, but I've already had a bourbon with my coffee this morning, so I'm ready to do a drunk history. This is going to go, you're going to have to take notes on this for the final. In 1968, there was something called the Prague Spring. In those days, the Russians totally conquered and subverted all the governments in Eastern Europe. And somehow a guy named Alexander Dubček became head of the Communist Party in Czechoslovakia, and he started liberating the country and letting people have free opinions. And the way that used to work out, the Russians sent in tanks in 1969. And they didn't kill Dubček, but he's never had another good job. And in 1969, you know about me that I had an extremely dull life, but my life used to be slightly more exciting. And I entered graduate school in 68, and then I went to South Africa to do my dissertation on that. All along the way, I was in Berlin, and I knew some Germans. And you used to be able to go to East Berlin for a day. And I wanted to go to Prague after the cut breakdown, which was, they weren't letting Westerners in. But I went with my German friend to East Berlin, and we went to the Czech embassy, and I applied for a visa. And we were there about 2 hours, and my German friend would say, hey, what's up, you know? And what they were probably doing is calling back to Prague and saying, can we let this guy in? I'll jump, you know, right now, Prague is like a millennial playground. You know, Westerners are there constantly. When I got there, I was the only Westerner there. And so, you know, I would go into a shop, and when I went into a barber shop, I saw some pictures in the back. And I said, who are those pictures? And one of the pictures was of Dubček, who was current, you know, an unemployed government official. And the other picture was of Emil Zatopek. And what Hassan did is unbelievable. But Emil Zatopek, in 1952, he won the 5,000 and 10,000. And then on the last day of the Olympics, on Sunday, decided to enter the marathon. And this is kind of a all-time head game thing. When you run the 5,000, 10,000, you run faster than you do in the marathon because it's 26 miles. The British runner was favored to win, and Zatopek ran up next to him and said, excuse me, I've never run this race before. Can you tell me why everybody's running so slow? And then so that was in 1952. In 1969, I'm in a barber shop, and they have pictures of Dubček, a man who sacrificed his life and his career for freedom, and Emil Zatopek. So my response to these heroes, I'm not alone. You know what I'm saying? People remember Emil Zatopek forever. And that great line, excuse me, I've never run this race before. Why is everybody running so slow?
It's like a cartoon.
Yeah. Can you put, now I'm going to go to some American women. Remember, we've done Sifan Hassan, we've done Laura Muir, and we've done Molly Seidel. And when I tell you, all of these people are heroes to me, I'm not making it up. Allyson Felix is an American who won the bronze in the 400 meters.
Oh, I thought you were sorry. I thought you wanted me to go to that picture.
Ah, so. Perfect.
Is that good? Okay.
The picture on the left is Allyson Felix. She's won 12 medals over 5 Olympics. She's 33 years old. I mean, look at those women. They're stunning. They're so beautiful. Look at them. This is a race where 4 people run 400 meters each. And Allyson Felix had come in third. She won the bronze in the individual 400. We're going to discuss each of them. The one on the far right is the one on the next to the right is named Muhammad. And the one on the far right is Sydney Mclaughlin. And the one second right next to Felix is Athing Mu. So let's go back to Felix. Felix is not the greatest runner of all time. Usain Bolt is like a superhuman. He's the male. He won the 100 and 200 meter dash and was part of the 400 meter relay golds for 3 straight Olympics. No other human being could touch him. Felix is a great runner, but she's had some seconds and some disappointments, and she hasn't won some gold. She started out in the 200 meters, but then she had to move up to the 400 because she doesn't have quite the leg speed. She's 35 years old. I said 33. It's her 5th Olympics, 2 years removed from pregnancy complications that could have killed her or her daughter. She is 5'6" and 126 pounds. And age had pushed her out of the 200, her signature event, up to the 400. Of the 8 women who lined up on the starting blocks Friday in the individual 400 meters, she had the 7th slowest time in the preliminary rounds. Miller Weebu, the winner from the Bahamas, opened a huge lead down the home stretch and demolished the rest of the field, winning gold in 48.3 seconds. Felix kept chugging in the outside line, fighting to make history. She clung to 3rd place, but with 50 meters to go, was overtaken by Stephanie Ann McPherson of Jamaica. It looked like Felix would succumb, but she spurted ahead to take 3rd. In the interviews afterwards, Felix said, "For me, this wasn't about winning. It was about women and mothers and overcoming." Her 5th Olympics, 12th medal, next to last slowest competing time. She's passed, and she, at the age of 35, she pushes herself across the finish line. And within 2 years, she had a near-death experience. So, I don't know. Amazing. What a heroine, what a hero. And we looked at the picture. So on the 2 right, the women on the 2 right were Dalilah Muhammad and Sydney Mclaughlin. They ran in the 400-meter hurdles, and both of them within the last several weeks had broken the world record. And in the final in the Olympics, they both broke the world record again. And McLaughlin, unfortunately for Muhammad, broke it by more. She won, and Muhammad came in second. So they were two people competing one against the other in a friendly, loving way. They hugged afterwards. They're both Americans. And I might add, and McLaughlin is 21 years old, the woman who set the world record. And she comes from New Jersey. So I was reading about her, and now we're back to the woman who was standing second from the left, whose name is Athing Mu. The New Jersey natives will take Felix's place as the face of Team USA. McLaughlin and Mu is also from Jersey. Mu is 19 years old. She's an American. She won the gold in the 800 meters before participating in the 4x100. The quiz is going to be tough. The final is going to be tough, Zach. You know what I mean? We've got a lot of races here. Don't forget Dubček. No single American track athlete made a bigger impact in Tokyo than McLaughlin and Mu. And given that they are 21 and 19 respectively, it's hard to project even greater things in the future. It isn't hard. It wasn't just how they performed on the track either. They were quotable, polished, and at times hilarious. And we've talked about athletes being very anxious about presenting themselves. Mu is a 19-year-old who lives in Trenton, New Jersey, which is an area high in negative urban outcomes. Her parents migrated from southern Sudan. And at the end in the interview, she just won the 800-meter race in the Olympics at the age of 19. And her strategy was to avoid all that pushing and shoving. She ran to the front, and she never relented. Twice around the track. Mu wearing a beret with the word, wore a beret with the word confident. She became the first American woman in 53 years to win a gold medal in the 800-meter race. She led from start to finish. She set a US record too, and then announced that she planned on not only breaking the world record, 38-year-old world record, but she wanted to win an unprecedented double gold. Nobody's ever done this, of 400 and 800 meters in the next Olympics. And you know, her parents came here. She's one of 7 children from southern Sudan, and they live in Trenton. It's unbelievable, isn't it? How could somebody do that? So I'm going to ask you, why is there something wrong with me that I admire these women as heroes? And why do I love accomplishment and achievement so much? Is that a mental disorder that I live and die and watch these people, in this case women, do these stunning things and overcome adversity to become world champions or, you know, top or medal winners? Why do I respond so much to that? Am I totally out of touch and out of fashion, Zach?
Yes, no kidding. There's, you know, there are people in every story of, you know, elite achievement or, you know, strong achievement or impressive stories, people who are lauded as heroic. At any moment along those stories, they could have gone one of 2 ways, or maybe a few different ways. One is they all had some traumatic or distressful moments in their lives, and they could have operated out of complete fear that they shouldn't be doing the thing that they're doing. The thing is that they all pushed forward and did it despite it being a risk. And the reason was because it was so purposeful to them. And it's almost like, I think a few of those athletes even said it wasn't about the medal. They're upon the reflection. I mean, they had their lived circumstances, a lot of them negative. Then they had a purpose, and they, you know, it's like time passed by like nothing when they're living their purpose. They're so set on what they need to do. It's so obvious, you know, what their goals should be. And at the end, it's not even about whether they reached the goals they had set for themselves, because there's a realization, like in any hero's journey, that it was about the entire process of it. And what they're not doing at the end is sitting around thinking, I'll never know what it would have been like to take those risks or to work hard. They're never regretting doing anything that they did, which is, that's the completely opposite story to the stigma of mental illness stories that we hear every day that we're inundated with.
And in a way, my question to you was slightly, polemical. I'm not the only person that admires these women.
No.
Person wins.
This is everyone.
Only one person wins any marathon race. The New York Marathon race, they have, 5,000 people. And a lot of people, some are, great runners, a lot of kind of middle-aged people in wheelchairs. And they love the winners too. I mean, they don't say, oh, well, I'm like them or I'm not as good as them. They're inspired by them. And a lot of those runners, have had, the two of these runners were African immigrants. They've come from really tough places in life. Nobody set a table for them. And every one of them had to overcome some kind of adversity. And doesn't that inspire all of us, to feel that we can deal with life's difficulties and adversity and take a shot at it? Aren't they inspirational? Let me jump to another question. Zach, this is supposed to be an addiction podcast. What the hell does all this have to do with addiction?
Are any of those people confused about what they were up to? Their lives, not only were they able to overcome a lot of the adversity they had faced without succumbing to some sort of illusory comfort, like a lot of people do, especially a lot of Americans, that also has the negative outcomes, like drugs or like overeating or like whatever involvement you get yourself in that helps you ignore the feelings of distress. They felt those feelings, all the way through. And not only did they feel them, but they mapped it onto some sort of a purpose that made the purpose all that more meaningful.
Hassan said about herself, am I crazy? Everybody says I'm crazy to run 100 meters. Everybody had a moment of doubt. The woman who came in third in the marathon, she went off the edge during her prep, just in the time between when they delayed the marathon. And she said, in the past, I've gotten absorbed into self-destructive behaviors. And what we believe, we talk about purpose and achievement and meaning in life. We know not everybody's going to win a gold medal. Not everybody that we talked about won a gold medal. But we believe that pursuing something positive is worthwhile in itself and is one of the most sustaining forces you can have in life to prevent you from getting caught up in a dead end. And we believe it. We have some basis for believing it. Longitudinal studies show, there's a famous Terman study where they looked at people with high IQs and they found out that the single most important factor in people having a successful life and even living longer was that they had some purpose in life, even if they didn't actually fulfill the purpose. Even if the purpose in a sense was unfulfillable. And so you might call this sort of an existential approach. There's something called existential psychology and therapy. A man named Yalom is one of the most famous people of that in that approach. And we agree with him that finding and pursuing meaning, however you define it, it doesn't mean that you have to beat everybody in the world. It just has to mean that you have something motivating and purposeful in your life that allows you to continue, to proceed, because you're going to encounter setbacks and difficulties. And that's one of the things that the Life Process program brings to addiction treatment or coaching. And it's something that we feel Americans can lose sight of in their pursuing mental health as the main goal. We're pursuing mental health as a side effect of engaging positively with life.
There's we mentioned Carol Dweck in our book, in Outgrowing Addiction, and I don't know, maybe we mentioned Ellen Langer as well, but definitely Carol Dweck. And one of her ideas that's not talked about a lot is leaning on an uncertainty. And then she goes on to say, and this is Angela Duckworth as well, goes on to say, well, what does that mean? It's like one of her biggest fears is that people are going to read that book, and then there's going to be a bunch of classroom teachers that say, all right, kids, start leaning on uncertainty. And then if they don't do it, then they're graded poorly, and which is exactly the opposite of what she wants. No, it's like you're never certain. So you can set a goal, do it, have purpose, live your purpose. And people tend to pick up relationships, pick up new involvements, pick up new things along the way of that journey that kind of cling to their purpose, so that the whole purposefulness compounds over time. So you said about not reaching a goal. You could not reach your goal, but what you might learn along the way or at the end is that, oh, this was purposeful for a whole host of other reasons than what I expected or what I thought it would be. Sure, I'm glad that I did it. You're not becoming addicted.
Positive accoutrements from that thing.
Exactly.
I published my memoir, A Scientific Life on the Edge, at the age of 75. And I did that very consciously because a man named Emmanuel Ezekiel published an article in Atlantic saying, well, people should all die at the age of 75. It was a little article. And then when I got done my memoir, I said, because of Zach and Dee, one of our coaches, this morning, I ride my bike to the Y, where I met Mayor. If you read my memoir, I ran into the mayor of New York, de Blasio, several times. And when you ran into de Blasio too, when we were in South Slope. And there's a big armory, and I exercised there in the morning. I got up there at 7. And then I had a really delicious cheese croissant, but let's put that aside. And I'm thinking, gosh, now what do I do? I put my name into one of these calculators, my data, and it said I could live to be 90. So I've got 15 years. And I'm thinking, well, who am I going to hang out with? What am I going to do? Do I have enough money? How's my health going to be for all the time? And then I start thinking, could be a fun challenge, all of this, and I mean, let's get my head in the right place, for dealing with all of this. And, the world's a difficult place right now for everyone. It's fair to say life is a challenge now. There's no kind of resting place for virtually anyone. And in a way, addiction, and when we look at drug deaths, 93,000 in 2020, that's one manifestation of the fact that people are being overwhelmed. When things overwhelm you, it's not challenges, it's overwhelming despair.
Right.
So we're trying to create non-addictive answers in a world where it's very hard to just coast through. It's almost like the kind of facing up to challenges, avoiding, retreating, being passive and defensive and fear-inspired. We're almost saying those methods which conceivably could have worked 50 years ago, I don't know, 100 years ago, they're hard to rely on now.
Anybody with a purpose could still have their challenges, right now. But if you have a purpose that's carried through these times, is going to continue to carry you through these times, then you're probably in good shape. You're not getting distracted by the burdens of life. And if you feel like you're short of a purpose, it's just never too late to develop an understanding of what's meaningful in life. I think that's the bookend.
And we had a discussion earlier on a separate cast about a man who's wondering about his work and should he just try and get by, and he's maybe afraid to expand his horizons. We don't make that decision for any human being, but we want everybody to contemplate that possibility.
Brilliant. Stanton, thanks for all of this. This is like the best focused recap of the Olympics that I've heard.
Remember the quiz: Dubček, Zatopek, Hassan, Muir. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to be a quiz on this week.
You did well pronouncing all those names, by the way.
My best.
Right.
Au revoir.
Take care, Stanton.